Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy Hill. I'm the CEO of NuVision Biotherapies. NuVision was originally spun out of the University of Nottingham in England. We're now at that happy stage where we've got a proven technology, a proven value proposition, and a proven business model. And what we're looking to do is raise a Series A round to allow us to scale the business globally. Around the world, 1.4 billion people are living with dry eye disease. It's a chronic, incurable disease that causes a tremendous amount of suffering. At one end of the spectrum, if you're like me, you probably take some over-the-counter eye drops once or twice a month, depending on what you're doing. In an environment like this where there's a lot of air conditioning, perhaps a little bit more. At the other end of the spectrum, in the moderate to severe end of the disease, it can have a dramatic effect and a devastating impact on your quality of life. Now, the therapeutic options that are available to someone who's living with dry eye disease are over-the-counter preparations, eye drops that are primarily aimed at lubricating the eyelid to ensure that you don't get damage to the surface of the eye. At the other end of the spectrum, much more sophisticated products, cyclosporin drops, blood serum drops, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drops. But there's a problem, and the problem is that most of these products don't work terribly well at all. And indeed, you don't need to talk to many patients to figure out that there's a real issue that they're facing. So the current standard of care clearly isn't working. We've talked to hundreds of people around the world who are living with dry eye disease, and a new solution is urgently required. The really good news, however, is that the solution's already here. And this woman holds the key. If she were to have an elective cesarean section and chose to donate the amniotic membrane that surrounds and nourishes and protects her baby in the womb to NuVision, then we could convert it into a life-changing product that we call Omnigen. Omnigen is an amniotic membrane that's been preserved using our patented preservation process, a thing we call Tyrio. And Tyrio-processed amniotic membrane, or Omnigen, is a dry preparation that can be stored at room temperature at the point of care. It's proven to support healing, and it has an unparalleled safety record. We've treated over 10,000 eyes now. There's never been a serious adverse reaction to Omnigen. And indeed, one of the remarkable properties of amniotic membrane is that you can transplant a membrane from anybody and put it into the eye of anybody else. So, amniotic membrane's been used for an awful long time. The first reported cases came from Johns Hopkins Hospital in the United States in 1910. In ophthalmology, the product was used from the 1940s. It's inherently safe and it's inherently effective. However, the uptake of amniotic membrane in ophthalmology has been hampered by one very serious issue. And that is that in order to keep it on the surface of the eye, in order for it to have its healing impact on the disease you're treating, you have to take a patient to the operating room and then stitch the membrane to the patient's eyeball, which is not a whole lot of fun for the patient. So it's in the past been the case that amniotic membrane has only been used in ophthalmology as a treatment of last resort. So our co-founder and chief scientific officer came up with an idea. What about if we could create a bespoke bandage contact lens that had a specific reverse geometry on the concave surface of the lens that held the amniotic membrane, our Omnigen, in place, in apposition with the eye throughout the required time for treatment, normally around 5 to 7 days. So we came up with our partner, Menicon, with a thing called OmniLens, the bespoke bandage contact lens that holds Omnigen in situ on the surface of the eye. This is revolutionizing the way that amniotic membrane can be used in a myriad conditions inside our ophthalmology. We've lost count at around about 20 different indications in ophthalmology. And this has now opened the door for us to take amniotic membrane into routine use in dry eye disease. It's very simple to apply. It's a 4 to 6 minute outpatient procedure. You can do this in the physician's office, or you can do it in the outpatient's department. What's really, really important is it fits into current clinical practice really easily. Anybody who is used to prescribing contact lenses can be taught to put the Omnigen and the OmniLens into a patient's eye in about 10 minutes. It's really very simple to do. So, how do we know that Omnigen and OmniLens works in dry eye disease? Well, the University of Aston in Birmingham, England, undertook a randomized controlled trial using the product in patients with upper end of moderate and into severe dry eye disease. And they looked at a range of different parameters of disease severity, including here ocular surface disease index. Now, it's important to note that ocular surface disease index is the only objective measure of symptomology in dry eye disease that's accepted now. We looked at other things as well, and I'll touch on those in a second, but OSDI is the one that many people will recognize, and it was the measure that was used for those pharmaceutical products that I talked about earlier on. In our case, we were able to take a patient from being severe to having the level of dry eye disease that I've got. And we did that with one treatment in each eye for 5 to 7 days. The reduction in OSDI was 37 points, or 66%. Let's put that in context. For cyclosporin eye drops, the go-to, if you will, for people with severe and very severe dry eye disease, in their randomized controlled trial in a very similar group of patients, their reduction in OSDI was 13.6 points. Like I said, 37 points with Omnigen, OmniLens, 66% reduction. Now, I'm going to talk very briefly about a case, a gentleman called Michael, who presented to Aston with recurrent corneal epithelial erosions. In lay terms, this meant that his eyes were breaking down. It's very painful, very difficult disease to live with. And he had, alongside that, severe dry eye. One treatment each eye, 5 to 7 days, gave him 18 months freedom from symptoms. And at 18 months, he came back for retreatment. We have transformed the life of Michael, and we're going to transform the lives of millions of other people around the world. Very briefly, we sell to hospitals, whether it's in the operating room or whether it's in the outpatients department, optometrists, and private clinics who are doing ophthalmology. Our business model is very straightforward. Direct sales in the UK and Ireland are effectively our home markets, distribution-led elsewhere. As I said at the start, we've established the product, we've demonstrated commercial uptake, and we've got robust clinical data that we're adding to. As I said, we're looking for a Series A round, 10 million, about 12.5 million US. The expected trade sale exit in, let's say, 5 years from now, somewhere between 100 and 150 million, fingers crossed. We're going to use the funds to build the team, for working capital and CapEx where we can't fund it otherwise. That's me, and I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much.